All right. Hey guys, I'm the Philosopher, and welcome to the Console Explosion podcast. This is where I talk about all the nerdy news that I'm the most excited for. And of course, I've got to talk about comic book stuff. Lots of comic book things to talk about, not the actual physical comic books, but comic book related things like video games and movies, and even trailers. Because we have a couple of trailers to talk about from Marvel. We also have Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite news, and then lastly, we're going to talk about the Justice League movie. There will be spoilers, so definitely be aware of that. Other than that, let's jump right on into it. So, we have the trailer from... Oh no, actually it's a teaser. Let me backtrack a little bit. Let me pull back and talk about the trailer for... or the teaser for the Infinite War. Excuse me, I couldn't grab my words. Very tired, so forgive me. So, today is, or as of recording this, is 11/28. By the time this is uploaded, it should be the 29th, and with that, there will be a trailer for Infinity Wars, or a teaser for Infinity Wars, I believe. Which is weird. They're giving a teaser for a teaser. That's kind of odd that we're at this level of marketing now. We're at this layer. There's so many onions to marketing that we're there now, and apparently it's effective enough for them to keep on doing it. Whatever. So, yeah, we have this teaser dropping tomorrow. So I want to know your thoughts. If you have seen the trailer by the time you watch this video, let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, are you guys excited for the movie, or do you just not care? Are you comic booked out? Are you having comic book movie fatigue? So other than that, I was at the movie theater going to watch Justice League, and one of the trailers was the Black Panther trailer. I think it might have been the third one, perhaps, possibly the second, but it was a trailer that I hadn't seen. I think I've only seen the first one. And just I'm really excited about this movie. That's not really a surprise. I've talked about it a lot. I'm really looking forward to that. Black Panther is one of my favorite comic book characters ever. There's not a lot of comic book characters that I can relate to personally. Of course, that has a lot to do with race, but there's just so many different mindsets that I have outside of race. But this character in particular kind of plays a role in both. There's a lot of morality issues and leadership and things like that, but it also comes from a place that I would call the motherland. So that's a personal thing. There's so many other reasons to like the Black Panther outside of that, so don't let that be the only way you see the character. He's totally awesome. But something that I'd like to critique the trailer for is the music choice. I don't know why this bothers me so much. I know it's kind of a personal thing, but I just want to share my mindset, and you guys can let me know what you think about it. So I love the music in the trailers. I think the song choice have been really good. I'm almost sure there have been 2 or 3 different songs. My issue is it just feels out of place for the trailers. They're selling up this, this Wakanda lore, this world of Wakanda, and it's technologically advanced, but it takes place in Africa, which is totally awesome. But they're playing American style hip hop, and to me that just feels a little bit out of place. I think even if they had played hip hop, but maybe with a little bit more of a, again, this is me assuming, but a tribal sound, like something from Africa. I think rather than a remix of an older hip hop song, which are good choices, I just think it would have fit a little bit better. It would have helped me be excited for the world of Wakanda rather than looking at it as just like the American style hip hop sort of thing. Because that music, when you hear that, for a person who's not a fan of hip-hop, that might deter them from even wanting to see the movie. There's a lot of great in this movie, and I think the trailers might deter a certain kind of people because of just the music choice. That sucks that that's the case, but some people are like that, and I think they would still enjoy the movie and possibly learn something from it if the movie's going to be as good as I hope it's going to be. So that's just my little nitpick. It's not a huge deal. Other than that, I'm excited. Michael B. Jordan is actually one of my favorite actors right now. He was amazing in Creed. If you haven't seen that yet, go fix it. But yeah, I also think that I have one more point to make about this, and I can't recall it right now. But anywho, it's going to be a great trailer. I'm ready for this movie to come out. Let me know what you guys think. Other than that, the last piece of Marvel information I need to talk about is definitely the new characters coming from Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. This is a game that I have still not purchased yet, but I love when I play this game. Every time I get it in my hands, I love the fighting of that game. The style of that game is very cool and unique, and I've been playing a lot of Street Fighter and a little bit of Injustice, but there's something about Marvel that's just it's different. You got to try it for yourself, but also just you have to practice it, sadly. But that said, there are 3 characters coming out for this game. They're all Marvel characters. First, we have Winter Soldier, then we have Scarlet Witch, and then we have Venom. So I'm excited about 2 of those characters. One, not so much. This is a personal thing. I just think the character of Scarlet Witch isn't a very exciting character, and maybe that's just a me thing. And I don't know. I just feel like someone with some cooler powers, or something crazier, could have been put in the game. Instead, they kind of went the Hollywood route, which I can't blame them for financially. That's business. I won't fault them for that, but just as a nerd, it would have been cool to have so many other characters other than Scarlet Witch. That said, her fighting mechanics are kind of cool. She plays a little bit like X-23 from UMVC3, who I mained when I first started playing Ultimate, and kind of fell off later on. I picked up Virgil, but she was always a very cool person, a very cool character, and played a near and dear place in my heart because she was related to Wolverine, but her playstyle was a little bit cooler and what I liked. I later gave her up because she was a glass cannon. That said, she also plays Scarlet Witch also plays a little bit like possibly Jill from 3 as well, and a few other things, just to kind of give you an idea of what she fights like, which makes sense. She also does have some projectiles, I believe. She has her guns, so that also makes me think of Jill Valentine. But yeah, not excited for the lore of that character, but I can't argue that the fighting mechanics are kind of cool. Next, you have Winter Soldier, who I was not excited for until I saw his fighting style, because he's like a mixture of Chris Redfield and Bionic Commando and a couple other characters, and that looks really cool. I'm not sure if I'm going to play him, but I'm excited to see what people are going to do with him. I'm also excited to see what people are going to do with Venom. He has always been an interesting character. He's one of my favorite villains for sure, and I think this iteration of Venom definitely pays homage to the Marvel vs. Capcom 2. He plays very much like it. I think he has the weird morphing into like almost like a blob shark sort of style attacks, and that definitely, they didn't have to go that route fully, but they totally did, which I think was probably a good call on their part to appease a lot of the old school players of Marvel, while also he's still cool enough to introduce new people to Marvel that they're going to enjoy it as well. It's pretty familiar. The only thing that I'm not excited for is his voice acting. I think the person that plays him just isn't convincing enough as Venom. Let me know what you guys think. The voice of him, I will give the person credit for saying "we are Venom." That's just a kind of a cool thing. Venom is a symbiosis. It's 2 people. It's Eddie Brock and it's the symbiote alien type goo. So that's really important from the comic book perspective, just because that separates him from Carnage as just villains and their mindsets and how that all works with the symbiotes. So that's pretty cool. Definitely appreciate that. Just think the voice, maybe it just could have been tweaked and deepened a little bit. I don't know. It just doesn't sound right to me. Now, I'm going to take a sip of water. Then I'm going to get into the movie that is the Justice League. Okay. So, now we need to talk about this movie. I went into this movie with low expectations. I think they were exceeded. I've talked to a lot of people about this movie. I've watched a lot of reviews and critiques on this movie. And it definitely seems like the reviews are kind of all over the place. I think a lot of people genuinely did enjoy it, but also people couldn't argue that there wasn't much depth to the movie. Like, it was entertaining, but it could have just been so much more, because so many of us had so many high expectations, just because it is a Justice League and so many cool characters, but also because we know that good comic book movies can be done now. Outside of the Superman and some of the Batman movies, which are arguable, there hasn't been a very in-depth, great, like, comic book movie. And you can argue whether or not this is true of the Marvel movies, but personally I think that a lot of those Marvel movies are very well done, and nothing has been done as well as those movies. No comic book character has been portrayed as well and cohesively as the Marvel anthology that we have going on. Collectively, there are quite a few bad movies, but overall, the universe that they're building cinematically is very well done, and DC has not caught up to that yet. It's not a critique. I'm not the biggest DC fan, but I will say when a Marvel movie isn't good, like the X-Men movies, but I also, you can't argue numbers, and I while you can also say that Marvel movies do have a lot more on them, or they have a lot more out, uh, it's still just they're doing better overall. There was way less criticism, and I think as a result of that, or in some part to that, people are very hard on the DC movies. Because I don't think, if I had never seen any of the Marvel movies, I probably wouldn't have. I probably wouldn't have lowered my expectations first off, but I probably wouldn't have such high expectations in the first place to be disappointed. I would go into it with like just knowing that it was going to be kind of a cheesy, just entertaining sort of thing where they just reference the characters, but the story is just way so not relevant to the comics that it's for entertainment. But yeah, that said, let's get into the characters a little bit. I want to talk about those and how I felt about some of them. Starting with Batman. I actually enjoyed Batman. A lot of people say he was more lighthearted, which I agree. He had a lot more one-liners. Those I felt were a little out of character to me. I don't know if it was. So, you know what? Let me backtrack a little bit and get you guys on the same page. I don't know if you know this, but the movie was actually directed by two different directors. The names are failing me right now. I want to say Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon, but I can't remember which one. One of their daughters committed suicide, which is very terrible, and that sucks. And that kind of changes the tone of how I talk about this movie. But I believe the other director came in to pick up where he left off, and that caused a lot of reshoots. And it caused a lot of bad things to happen that wasn't necessarily either of the two people's fault, because honestly, I would put family first every time. If someone's, if my girlfriend got sick, I would drop whatever I'm doing and go help her, because that's more important to me. So that kind of affected the movie, but ultimately, at least now you understand if you haven't already found that information out for yourself. Nonetheless, I've got to be a critique and talk about these nonetheless. So, yeah, that leads me back to Batman. And I felt like at certain times he had kind of the Batman v Superman, which I liked. I liked that Batman. He kind of had that vibe to him. And a lot of times he seemed a little more one-liner-ish and a little more lighthearted. The movie as a whole was very lighthearted, which I don't think it was a bad thing. You could argue expectations because of what they've been seeing from now, but nonetheless, you kind of have to separate it from those movies if you want to try to enjoy it, in my opinion. So with Batman, I think at times he was a little dry, sometimes he was good. Like, it just felt mixed to me. It felt like he was a little bit all over the place. When I was watching the movie, it didn't bother me too much, but when I try to recall the movie and I'm thinking about it as a prior experience, that's when the red flags start going up in my mind with that character. So I think the movie and him as a whole was good. He was kind of the glue that held everybody together. He definitely, I gotta give him props for not him, but the movie as a whole. The character, props for kind of acknowledging the whole Batman is less human than Superman kind of argument, where he's talking about Clark is more human than he'll ever be, or something along those lines. And I thought that was kind of deep, deeper than I think some movies are willing to go. The Batman movies all were kind of like that in their own way, but I just didn't feel like Batman v Superman had that vibe, and that was kind of a very interesting line to choose for me. So I thought that was really good. So overall, Batman, I think thumbs up. You have Wonder Woman, who I enjoyed when she was in the movie. I just felt like she wasn't in it enough, and then she didn't do enough. Like, she could have had more to do, but instead they kind of gave her this character that was in mourning for 100 years. You know, she lost her lover back during like the World War I or World War II times. I can't recall it right now, but yeah. So they kind of made it seem like she was a recluse and she wasn't doing anything this whole time. And even after Batman v Superman, she still kind of went back into being a recluse, and that just didn't seem like a great idea. Like, she could have been doing so much more. She could have been becoming more of an icon. They didn't have to do this that particular way. I don't know why they chose to make her go that route, but I don't think that. I think that made less of a character for me of Wonder Woman. But nonetheless, she was good in it, and that kind of led to a very funny scene with her and Aquaman, which I'll talk about next because it's relevant. One of the funniest scenes to me was when Aquaman starts spilling his guts about how he feels about the whole entire situation, and like, it seems so out of character for Aquaman. I don't, like, up until that point, he was like the super macho, yeah, like grunty, militant kind of like character who was just all about, you know, like being badass. It just, that's kind of how he seemed. But all of a sudden, he just starts spilling his guts, and we're just like, what the heck is this? All of a sudden, like, I know they're more lighthearted, but this seems ridiculous. And lo and behold, he's actually sitting on the lasso of truth, and it was a very, very funny scene to me. I think it was cleverly done. Like, you kind of notice it halfway through, but like, yeah, I enjoyed that scene. I thought that was pretty funny. I think the audience also enjoyed it. There wasn't a whole lot of laughs when I was in the audience, but I think that was one of the times when collectively everyone thought that was pretty funny. So other than that, though, I think the character was cool in action, but his character development just wasn't there. It didn't seem like he learned anything throughout the whole entire movie. He kind of became a little bit closer to these characters, but it didn't seem like he had changed too much or evolved. I don't know. I think there could have been more. I don't think, again, I don't think this was a bad movie. I just think that when I sit back and look at it and kind of look at replay the movie in my mind and have taken in, you know, everything that everyone else believes, I've been able to develop my opinion on the movie a little bit better. I don't agree with a lot of the people and how hard they're being on certain parts of it, but for me, there's certain things that I caught, and that's just kind of how I feel about that character. I don't think he brought too much outside of just forwarding the storyline. Another character that I was very excited for, thought was pretty good, but just again was in some ways disappointing, was Cyborg. Cyborg's a very, very cool character. He's great in the Teen Titans, and he's a very, very interesting character because he has this struggle with being cybernetic but also still being part human. He's not all man, obviously, but he's not all machine either because his consciousness is from a human being. But he can do so much that a human can't do, and he can become so much that a human won't become. And there's a lot of thinking there. There's a lot of depth of ways of thinking that character would have that is kind of hard to emulate because no one's ever experienced that. So I think that with everything that happened with the directors, this character just didn't get developed enough. It seemed like there were a lot of scenes that could have been there to help develop the character a little bit more, but maybe maybe when we get the director's cut or something like that, there'll be just so much more character progression because I don't think there was enough development. I don't think it need to be flashbacks or anything like that. I don't think we need backstory too much because we know it up to this point. We've kind of pieced it together. They've given it to us, but what was he doing most of the time? He was kind of in his house just trying to become himself and do that. I think that could have been backstory perhaps, and there could have been more development during the crisis that was going on. I don't know. The other thing was his suit. It looked way more Transformer-y than Cyborg-y, if you know what I mean. Like, it was way more jagged and angular rather than smooth and curvy. And I don't know why they chose to do that, but I think that was their character progression because at the very end of the movie, he then evolves, because you know how he's been getting different powers throughout the movie. He then evolves the new armor that he basically is his traditional way of looking, and it's all smooth and curvy. So I wish that would have happened earlier in the movie. I think that would have been cooler to enjoy him in motion with that armor rather than just kind of shoehorning it in at the end. Uh, I think that there was no reason to not do that unless it had something to do with perhaps it's easier to render less polygons because and if you have a bunch of angles, it's a lot easier to render all those polygons because if it's curved, then you have to smooth it out and it's a little bit harder to make it look high poly unless you actually make it high poly. Whereas all these angles, they were probably like one big face, one big polygon, which just takes so much less resources than a curve. So that would be my reasoning as to why they would choose that aesthetic over his normal one. Because other than render time, I don't think anyone would say that that one looks cooler than his original armor. If you disagree, let me know down below. I will be welcome to debate that with you. But personally, I think his traditional one just looks way cooler. So with, again, the situation that happened with the directors, switching directors, they might not have had the resources and the time to render that because also render time is going to be longer if there are more polygons. So that sucks. But yeah, and the last good character is the Flash. I'm really torn on this character because I thought he was cool. I thought he was the most entertaining character of the bunch. He had the most personality, and the way they portrayed Barry was very interesting. I didn't hate it. I think that the actor that played him did a very good job. But I think that character was not developed enough prior to him meeting up with the Justice League. Mainly in the sense of experience. I think him as the Flash, like his personality, he could have been the same exact personality. But the whole shtick of him not being able to actually fight, it seemed it was very frustrating to me to see this character who is the fastest human in the world. And he's been superheroing. He already has a suit made at this point. He's already has a layer of some sort. He's had experience being the Flash, but somehow all he can do up to this point is run really fast and push people. That was kind of infuriating to me. I don't know why they did that. I don't know why they went that route with the character. Other than that, I think he was really good. I liked his interaction with his dad. It wasn't too much of it to me. I think it was just enough for people to know what was going on with him, but also people who already know the story to be like, okay, they're going this direction with it. Cool, I got it. It's not too much backstory, just enough. So, yeah, I like that. I just wish that he had more experience being the Flash so that his scenes could have been cool. Because one of the coolest scenes of him in this movie was him and Superman, and I knew this was going to happen, but nonetheless, it was cool seeing it in action. Where there's inevitably the big fight that leads up to freeing Superman, who I'll talk about in just a second. But during that fight, you see the Flash like kind of to slow down, like everyone's getting beat up by Superman because of course he's Superman, and the Flash just goes and runs for the first time while fighting Superman. It might have been the second time, I can't remember, but he's slowing, everything's in slow motion, everything's frozen except for him, he's running. Then all of a sudden, Superman just turns and looks at him with that face. He's like, it's almost scary. It's kind of terrifying because you know what Superman can do, and all of a sudden, up to this point, no one's been able to do anything. It's very shocking to the Flash. It was a really cool scene, and he gets jacked up, of course, but yeah, I think the fight scenes with him could have been so much cooler. The fight scene with Superman alone could have been so much cooler if the Flash actually knew how to fight. So I just felt like they didn't sell his action enough. There wasn't even enough good action in the movie to me outside of Steppenwolf, who is a character that I think is worth mentioning before we get to Superman, purely because I enjoyed his fight scenes. I don't have a problem with CG characters. I don't think, like, a lot of people have this issue with a CG character. I guess because he's a humanoid, maybe that's why they expect him to look like a human with regular, like a live action character. But I mean, my background's in animation, game design. I did a lot of staring at animated films and all these other things, and also people putting live action and animated films together. So that was not a problem to me. I did not care about him being full CG. It wasn't the greatest CG, no. But we're watching a comic book movie, so I'm able to suspend my disbelief there. That's not a huge issue to me. So that said, though, outside of his fight scenes, he didn't really deliver much. His interaction with his mother box type thing was very odd and not fully fleshed out to me. His motivations didn't seem quite that right. I'm not the biggest DC fan, so I don't know the lore of Darkseid and how that kind of fits into it, but he seemed like he had the strength, the brute force. Like, he was a scary character because he could beat your ass, but he just didn't have much thought behind what was going on. I love the fight with the Amazons. I thought that was totally cool. I think the Atlantis scene could have been a little bit better. That seemed very short. And then going with the theme of mother boxes, I just, this isn't a fault on Steppenwolf, but more so the movie as a whole. Like, he somehow got that third box during the scuffle with Superman, and no one like grabbed it. No one thought about it. He just zoop down, then back up. He just grabbed it. Up until that point, he had beaten everybody's ass before he grabbed it. This one, he was just like, oh shit, things are getting real. So two things happened to me. One, everyone in the Justice League just felt incompetent to me at that point. And number two, it made Steppenwolf feel like a coward to me. It made it seem like he, up until this point, he was beating everybody's ass because he knew he could beat everybody's ass, and then taking it, which you could argue that people were running away with it, but I think he could have acquired it a lot easier and just zoomed back up. But he chose to fight. And then he doesn't do anything. He just comes down, comes back up. And that seemed, it was a kind of a terrible scene to me. It really, like, I felt physically frustrated and just like disappointed at that moment. And that kind of changed the way I looked at the rest of the movie. I still enjoyed it, but I just kind of zoned out a little because I was like, oh, okay, like, that's, I don't know. So again, low expectations. So I'm sorry, I'm not trying to bash on this movie. I'm really not, but it just seemed, there's a lot of people that feel so many different ways about it, and that's really what's fascinating to me. So I want to try to recall my opinion of this movie and get that out of my system, because this is kind of me talking about it for the first time. I have a lot of things written down, but as I flesh out these ideas, I'm sharing them with you. But that said, yeah, Steppenwolf, cool fights, really awesome, but not much story there. And then Superman, I'm kind of torn because I don't remember a lot about the character. I do remember looking at the character's face and thinking he looked weird, but I didn't know why. I didn't know why he looked weird. I didn't know it was like his beard area. It just felt like they CG'd his face, and I didn't know why. It didn't bother me too much. I just didn't know why they had done it. Then I found out that the actor that played Superman had prior, basically beard restrictions because of his acting job. He's playing in another movie, and so he had to have the beard fleshed out. So they CG'd the beard out. Personally, I kind of would have liked to have seen a bearded Superman. I think that would have been kind of cool, but that wouldn't have made sense if he just all of a sudden, like, was he growing a beard in his, like, while he was dead, or, you know, it would be a lot of debates. So I see why they went that route, and I can't blame them, but it just kind of sucked. The situation sucked because a lot of people are pissed off about it. Didn't bother me too much. I just didn't know why they did it. Now that I know, it bothers me less, actually, because hey, it's business. You still have to look at it as those people are doing a job. It does suck if it does take you out of the experience, but to me, it doesn't bother me. So the thing that does bother me though is he just, I mean, he's Superman. I think the Clark Kent scenes were all fine. Those were all good. They made sense. They didn't bother me too much. But as Superman, I don't know. He just didn't seem rememberable. He just seemed like it was formulaic in a way that he came to be, and you knew it was going to happen because he was the only one that would he was the only one that would be able to save not Superman, but I guess the world from Steppenwolf, from getting these boxes. He was the only person that could do it. So it just was super expected, and nothing really new to me, nothing that I didn't know was going to happen. It was just a matter of how was it going to happen, and it wasn't super entertaining. It was a little bit of him kind of showing off his power, saving like a building and a few things, which were, for kids, I think this was a cool movie. That, not bad for me personally. Um, he as a character didn't really contribute too much other than just being the brute force that is Superman, which is, it's fine. That's what he does. He beats stuff up. I don't know why. I'm kind of biased against the character, so that has a lot to do with it, and I will admit that. But just there wasn't too much going on there for me. I'd love to know what you guys thought about Superman. If you thought he was okay, thought he was good, yeah, let me know down below. But yeah, other than that, the story as a whole, you kind of see where I went with a lot of what I talked about. I definitely think that how do I put this into words? I think the circumstances surrounding the movie definitely affected the quality of it, which makes me more forgiving of this movie and makes me want to like it more. I don't think it was a bad movie. I don't think at all it was a great movie, though. I think a lot of it has to do with expectations and what we think we want from a good DC Justice League movie. A lot of it has to do with prior knowledge. A lot of people who know these characters have these expectations, and it's really hard to detach from those expectations. I'm not that huge a DC fan, so that's probably why I was able to lower my expectations, and I've seen people try to defend certain things, and when I watched it, I don't know. I have a hard time calling the movie bad. I also can't be too hard on it, or don't want to be too hard on it, because someone lost their daughter, and you kind of have to be a human sometimes. Regardless, you are tossing $12 to $20 at the movie, so you have a certain expectation, and that makes sense. But overall, entertaining movie. I might consider watching it again, the extended cut, if there's a lot more stuff that fleshes out the whole entire story. I'd love to see that. Other than that, I thought it was just an okay movie. That said, let me know what you think about everything that I've talked about from the beginning to the end down in the comments below. I will put links to a lot of the things that I talked about. I'll put links to the trailer for, once it drops, the trailer for Infinity War, the new Black Panther trailer. I'll try to find a good video for you guys to describe the 3 characters from Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And of course, thank you guys so much for tuning in. My name is The Philosopher. This has been the Console Explosion Podcast. If you like this, definitely hit that like button and press that subscribe button and the bell button so that you can get notifications for when we do more content. We do lots of content here, more good stuff coming up. So I would love to show you guys, not just me, but so many other members of the community. Other than that, you guys have a great night. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.